awareness, we have turned on the live stream.
Morning, folks. Madam Clerk, you good to go?
Yes, we're good to go. Thank you.
All right. Well, I will call to order this executive committee meeting for May the 27th, and thank everyone for tuning in. I'll respectfully acknowledge that we're having today's meeting, albeit virtually. I think most of us are on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional territory of the Cree, the Dene, the Saulteaux, the Nakota, and the Blackfoot peoples, as well as one of the great homelands of the Métis Nation. I will now do a roll call first of committee members to establish attendance. Vice Chair McKean.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning. And Councillor Cartmell.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Hamilton.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Councillor Walters.
Good morning.
Morning. And do we have, I thought I saw Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, morning.
Morning. Any other members of council joining us this morning?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, good morning.
Morning, Councillor Knack.
Good morning.
Good morning, Councillor Essinger.
Councillor Benga. Okay.
Councillor Banga, welcome. Okay, I need a motion then to adopt the agenda. Councillor McKean.
I know there are changes. Do I have that in front of me?
Additions to 6.6 and 6.7 and replacement pages on 5.6.2 and 6.7.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I will move that.
Thank you. Any questions on the agenda? We are going to deal with a question of postponement relative to the Pedbridge item, but we'll come to that in due course. So for now, to adopt the agenda as presented with these additions and replacement pages, please vote.
I'm a yes.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. And we're just missing Councillor McKean's vote.
Yeah, I thought I was in the right meeting, Madam Clerk, but nothing showed up, and I'm a yes.
Great, thank you very much. And we have 5 votes, Mr. Mayor.
Display the vote, please. Unanimously carried. The minutes from May 10th.
I'm clicked on here, so I'll move those as well.
Sure. Questions, concerns, errors, or omissions on the minutes? Seeing none, please vote.
I'm a yes as well.
Make it official. Thank you, Councillor Hamilton.
I'm a yes.
Thank you, and we have 5 votes.
Display the vote. And the ayes have it. Protocol items. I don't think we have any today. Selection of items for debate. Councillor Hamilton.
I'll select 6.3 because I know there's that question of postponement.
Got it. Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. Any other selections? No, just that. Okay. Other selections? Oh, don't tease me. Are there no other selections?
Mr. Mayor, I will just flag there is one speaker on item 6.4 that is not registered to answer questions only.
Oh, okay. Then we should select 6.4. So I'll select 6.4 so we can hear from the speaker. Would someone like to move all of the other items?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Walters. So that's accepting 6.3 and 6.4. Please vote.
I'm a yes.
Yes.
Enthusiastically.
Thank you, Councillors McKeon and Hamilton. And we have 5 votes, Mr. Mayor.
Display the vote. A zing. That is carried unanimously. Okay, so then let's, the question of 6.3, I understand AHS requires a little bit more time to complete all the required steps on their side, and that a postponement will allow us to do that. And I understand there is a speaker who wishes to address this item. However, we would carry that opportunity over to once we have all of the information, including from AHS. And so actually several speakers, including AHS. So AHS has requested more time, which I understand doesn't create critical path issues for administration. And so on that basis, I would go to Councillor Hamilton for a postponement motion on 6.3.
Yes, I will move that Executive Committee recommend to City Council that the May 27th IIS report be referred to administration to provide additional information on ongoing funding discussions with stakeholders and return to the June 14th, 2021 Executive Committee meeting, all of which is to say for speakers here today that it's going to come to the next Executive Committee meeting 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now.
The complexity being that we need council to bless that date change because council had previously stipulated that it be dealt with at this meeting. So there's just a procedural inflexibility that requires council blessing, hence the structure of the motion. But yeah, force and effect is we'll be back here at the next available executive committee meeting with updated information all around. So and then Mr. Bro will be very welcome, as well as the folks registered from AHS to present at that time with all of the information. So that's the context. Any questions on the motion?
It looks like Councillor Knack may have a question.
Oh, Councillor Knack, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just waving frantically and also screen. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very quickly, and appreciating that from how I understand it, even if we postpone this past the supplemental capital budget, that's not going to create an issue in terms of timing to proceed with what is a really critical piece of infrastructure for a number of residents, but in particular those that Laurier Health.
Hi, Councillor Knack. It's Adam Lachlan. We don't anticipate that being an impact, so no concerns there.
Okay, that's the main thing I wanted to make sure we just said out loud for the resident, because I know there is a great demand to have that completed, and there's a major sense of urgency. So knowing that that doesn't create a timeline issue, that sounds perfectly reasonable step to take. Thank you.
No, it's good to double check that. Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions? Closing comments? Councillor Hamilton? No? Okay, please vote on postpone, referral, strictly speaking. Through
I'm a yes.
or via council, recommendation to council to postpone, strictly speaking. Procedural gymnastics this morning. Oh, my system has booted me out. Please put me down as a yes.
Thank you. And we're just missing Councillor Walters' vote.
I'm a yes.
Thank you. We have 5 votes, Mr. Mayor.
Display the vote. Carried. Great. All right. Well, then item 6.4.
Mr. Mayor, apologies. I think that there are still a few people on the line who may not, may need a little bit of clarification of what's happened so far and what items were passed. And
sure. Okay.
also, if we could just get a motion to hear from the speaker or speakers, depending how you want to handle that on 6.4. I don't believe we've done that yet.
You're right. Sorry, I raced ahead with enthusiasm. So let's loop back to the requests to speak. I note there are individuals on for questions only relative to the Affordable Housing Investment Program. Those reports have been passed, so there were no questions for folks from Right at Home or Treaty 8. Thank you for your partnership with the City of Edmonton on these important projects. Now get to work. And so thank you. We won't keep you any longer. And there is a request to speak on item 6.4, and particularly the individuals are Marilyn Wood to answer questions only and Carol Kowalczyk. Can I have a motion to hear from those individuals on 6.4?
I'll move that, that executive committee hear from those speakers and panels where appropriate.
Super. Please, I'll just seek unanimous consent at this point. Any objections to hearing from the speakers on 6.4? Not hearing any. Then request for time specific. There aren't any, but the only item left on our agenda will be the first item. So we will come to the public engagement policy renewal presently. But thank you for the reminder. I'll check now to see if there are any councillor inquiries. No. And then, Madam Clerk, just for the sake of form, I didn't ask you to read back what committee has approved without debate this morning, but perhaps just to clarify for anyone else still on the Hangout, wondering what we've taken care of, you could just confirm that, please.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. This morning, Executive Committee has passed the recommendations in the following reports without debate. Item 5.1, Schedule A4 parcel options, access options for the property at 10060 156th Street, with a revised due date of June 14th, 2021. Item 5.2, Blatchford Hangar 11 sale and historical preservation, with a revised due date of June 28th, 2021. Item 5.3, Ambleside integrated site, with a revised due date of third quarter 2021. Item 5.4, funding strategies for the A1 indoor soccer facility, with a revised due date of June 14th, 2021. Item 5.5, authority to approve indemnification of members of council and committees, with a revised due date of June 22nd, 2021, and that will be going to City Council. Item 6.1, Expo Centre of Excellence, funding approaches. Item 6.2, Affordable Housing Investment Program, Spring 2021 Grant Award Recommendation. Item 6.5, Single Source Google Services. Item 6.6, Sale of Land Below Market Value, Discovery Park Reservoir. Item 6.7, approval to commence expropriation of interests in property, 50th Street, CP rail grade separation. And item 6.3 was referred up to City Council for final approval, but to the June 14th, 2021 Executive Committee meeting.
Thank you. So that's a good day's work. So now I think we can get the presentation on 6.4 if there are opening comments on the policy review.
There are, Mr. Mayor, and I'm happy to offer those opening comments.
Go ahead.
Thanks very much. Joining me this morning are Rob Klatchuk, Branch Manager for Relationships and Customer Access, along with Ryan Barkway, Branch Manager, Research, Engagement and Communications, who now has oversight over the public engagement file, allowing for greater integration of public engagement insight with communications solutions. I have just a few brief introductory comments, after which we're happy to answer any questions you may have. The Public Engagement Policy C593 was first adopted by City Council on April the 11th, 2017, and was scheduled for a review and renewal on a 3-year cycle, which is one of the reasons we're bringing it forward to today. The policy also required formatting to ensure consistency with the new corporate policy framework, which has been done. However, the most important reason for updating this policy is to recognize the fact that there are voices among us who face systemic barriers, marginalization, and may feel excluded by decision makers. In order to help address this, the city is making intentional changes to ensure that the city's public engagement policy reflects the principles of diversity and inclusion, Indigenous awareness, and uses more digital engagement channels to expand access to public engagement. We're eager to hear from more than the typical participant in order to gain a breadth of insight. The policy renewal process involved significant consultation with members of the community-based Guiding Coalition on Public Engagement. Thanks to their valuable input and to the hard work of Councillors Henderson and Knack, as well as the Public Engagement and Research team, administration feels that this revised policy aligns more effectively with the expectations of citizens and the city's obligation for public engagement. As a learning and adaptive organization, the city will continue to be using collaborative, flexible approaches to listening and learning from all citizens, and in particular, to the distinct voices in our community. Only when we listen and learn will we be in a position to make the wisest leadership decisions that our community requires of us. And we believe that these proposed changes to the policy create the conditions for us to do just that. Thank you, and we're happy to take your questions and hear from the speakers.
Well, I'm reminded that this work has already been internationally recognized a couple of years ago, and yet here we are updating it even further, which I just really appreciate. So not to prejudice what we'll hear from the speakers or the further discussion, but thank you for those comments and the work, Ms. Owen.
Mr. Point of privilege is or point, yeah. And there's some kind of gurgling noise coming. I don't know if it's just me or others are hearing the same thing. Could that be fixed somehow? It's pretty annoying.
Yeah, no, I'm hearing that too. If everybody could mute themselves just to cut down on background noise, that would be wonderful. And we'll see if that settles it. Maybe there was something in the background. So it seems to be a little bit better now. Thanks for bringing that to my attention, Councillor Banga. That is a fair point of privilege. So now we will hear first from Marilyn. Oh no, we've still got some echo there. I think it seems to be feeding back from council chambers, so we might have to change the levels in chambers.
Mr. Mayor, there was a piece of equipment that we lost during a power outage, so I believe that's the source. We'll do our best to troubleshoot on our end.
Great. Okay. Thank you. So Marilyn Wood is registered first, but for questions only. Maybe Madam Clerk, perhaps you can mute council chambers by default, since.
Unfortunately, that is how the sound is routed to the live stream. So if you'd like to take a moment, we can do our best to get it resolved on our end.
Why don't we give you just 2 minutes? So we'll ask the speakers to stand by. We do have time this morning. See if we can get it resolved, just so everyone can hear a little bit better. So yeah, let's take just how long do you need? Is 2 minutes sufficient, or do you want 5? Or we have time. So
2 minutes should be sufficient.
Okay.
If it looks like it's going to take a little bit longer, I will let you know as soon as I know.
Okay. Well, we'll come back at 9:50 and check in. So stand by. We're in recess until then. why don't we start? And if it's in the way, we'll stop again. So, so we've got, sorry, let me just get on the right page here, so to speak. Marilyn Wood, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
Great. And Carol Kowalczyk, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
Welcome. And so to both of you, the way this will work is you'll each have 5 minutes to present. I realize you're for questions only, Ms. Wood, but if you have anything to add, there is an opportunity here. Each of you has up to 5 minutes if you need them. Would take your comments back to back. And then once we've heard from you both, then there may well be questions from members of the committee and members of council. I'll ask you just to mute while you're not speaking or answering questions, again, just to cut down on that echo we're dealing with here. And I just also request that you not use the chat function in the meeting here because it creates issues of fairness and decorum. We're primarily here to hear you verbally, and the chat also can interfere technically with the live stream. So with a welcome to you both and an invitation first to Ms. Wood to see if you did have any comments or just to confirm that you're here for questions only.
I'm so sorry. I had to deal with another telephone line ringing.
That's okay. Would you like me to come back to you in a minute, or?
Would you mind? I'll just need 1 second. Sorry about that.
Sure. No worries. I'll go to Ms. Kowalczyk and I'll check back in with Ms. Wood. Ms. Kowalczyk? Floor is yours.
Okay. Good morning. Am I speaking now?
Yes, you are. Proceed,
Okay.
please.
Good morning, Mayor and councillors. My name is Carol Kowalczyk. I'm a resident of the Highlands neighborhood. My neighborhood is currently undergoing neighborhood renewal. While we're all happy for new sidewalks with cutouts for accessibility, most of us are completely upset about the new extended boulevards replacing our rounded historic corners and Ada Boulevard being reduced to a mere trail. I feel that the public engagement was anything but, and that the questionnaires were skewed so that the answers given were manipulated. Our community was all surprised to hear the city suggest that massive changes were needed due to safety concerns. Despite our requests for statistics or other data on injury or death, the city replied they had none. This is one of the oldest, friendliest, most walkable neighborhoods in the city, with foot traffic all day long. We consider Ada Boulevard our multi-use avenue. We respect and watch out for each other. There are no problems except the one the city is creating. Building a multi-use 2.5 meter path for pedestrians, dogs, baby strollers, and cyclists is a recipe for disaster. This neighborhood is like a village within the city. We have vibrant small businesses and a lovely historic atmosphere. It's friendly, we all know and help each other. Throughout this process, our counselor was not there for us, and emails, when answered, were simply responded to as noted. It's not too late to reverse the changes aside from the sidewalks. The city should be more progressive and protect these jewels in our city instead of using cookie cutter approach in all neighborhoods and destroying them. To add insult to injury, anyone on a corner lot will inherit a huge boulevard addition, which they will have to maintain. If the city is intent on spending a lot of extra money during these trying times, maybe they should take a look at most of the back alleys or replace the lead pipes. Thank you for your time. I look forward to hearing how my talk might change the outcome on this issue.
Thank you, Ms. Kowalczyk. Ms. Wood?
Yes, good morning, Mayor, councillors. I also am a resident of Highlands, and in terms of the actual policy that has been presented for amendment and up and refreshment. I would indicate that I am fully in support of the issues and changes that are being proposed. I think it is time that views that are all-inclusive are part of the process. I think, subject to what Carol's remarks are, is that my concern is not so much in the policy of this that's being developed, but what actually in the execution of it. And that's where the public engagement process itself comes forward. And that is the process in which I believe there are some serious flaws, either on one of more than one avenue. And that would be, first of all, as to whether the city and city plans are actually even transparently given to residents of a neighborhood. If there are predetermined results that will be part of a future plan, I think those things could be given to everyone in advance of the processes of actually asking everyone for their great ideas, if in fact those ideas cannot be considered at all. I think that the process left many of us feeling like we had tried to participate and that our participation was just not valued, not included, not supported in the end. And I think that went all the way to the fact that we did try to intervene and ask for further amendments to the plan. And that actually did encourage many of us to put forth some of our own money so that the presentation to the council would be done professionally. But I have to say that I feel like all of that was never going to be entertained with any seriousness at all. And I guess so, therefore, in the end, I think my question is really how the city will ensure that some of the new values that they wish to be presented and followed in the new policy will actually follow through in execution. I think that would be my remarks.
Thank you both. Strictly speaking, just to ring fence the discussion a little bit, the decisions around Highlands are not before the committee today. I understand you're raising it as an example. So just to put a little bit of boundary on the questioning and the discussion. But I hear where you're coming from and why you've both taken this opportunity to present. But that's just as a preface to questions from members of council or committee.
I would have a couple of questions for our speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councillor McKean.
Because I went through this in Glenora with a lot of folks that were quite concerned about the change of the curvilinear streets into more sort of 90-degree angle intersections to make them safer. I just wonder if you, like, it's a frustrating thing for all of us, I think, to sometimes deal with best practice in safety, which is, I suspect, what is being the tension in Highland. And so you end up having to argue against best practice in transportation safety. And am I right about that? Is that sort of what you were bumping up against?
I think that would be a relatively fair comment. I mean, on one side, we are absolutely in favor of the safety that's provided by the new sidewalks that give accessibility to the wheelchairs and strollers and people with walkers and all of those things. I think it escapes all of us that there is some safety element that's improved by the removal of the curved corners for squared intersection. It just does not seem to have evidence to support the fact that there was a problem in the first place.
Right. Which is maybe, it may be incumbent on the city to reflect on that and how that is better communicated to neighborhoods, what the ultimate goal is here. But yeah, I hear you on that, and I can understand your frustration when you're. I have I've run up against civil engineers and transportation engineers on a number of issues, and they argue from the high ground of safety, and it's a difficult thing to argue against. So Ada, which I know very well, they're going to put sidewalks on both sides. Is that right?
No, there'll be sidewalks to one side.
Okay.
But I think I only make a point, and that is that I feel very strongly that I will be able to drive in many, many areas of this beautiful city, really, to find curved corners that are never going to be addressed on the issue of safety.
Anyways, I wanted you to know that I hear you, and this issue is very hard to resolve easily. Anyways, make everybody happy. But I might have a couple questions of administration on this related to your situation. So I really appreciate you coming in today because it does speak to our public engagement process. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the time. We do appreciate the fact we had an opportunity to state our views.
Thank you.
Thank you to our speakers. I see no further questions for you, but I appreciate that you had the opportunity to feel heard in this. And so thank you for registering today and for the feedback, which we'll take in on several levels. So now let's turn to questions of administration. I suppose I selected this, but are there, I have no particular questions on what's been put before us. Questions from members of council or members of committee?
I would jump in if I could, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councillor McKee.
Yeah, Ms. Owen, I guess it's probably you to start with. And I actually don't even know how to put this question, but there's this extreme tension when a community like this is going up against practices and codes where the city says, sorry, this is the way it has to be to ensure safety. And yeah, and I have the same argument of well, show us where the problem were before this. And it's, so how do you resolve that? I know it's not an easy question to answer, but I just think it's something that maybe we have to wrap our head around.
Thanks for the question, Councillor. I think there are always enhancements and improvements we can make to how we have conversations with community through the Building Great Neighborhoods program. But I do think it's fair to say that we have extensive and broad discussions with a comprehensive cross-section of communities. And as you well know, public engagement is not, cannot always make everyone happy, but it does strive to solve problems in the context of the greatest good for the greatest number of people. And that's always the sort of central principle that we have in mind. Should we, can we do more to communicate more effectively? Absolutely. And in the spirit of continuous improvement, we will take the good advice of our neighbors from Highlands and pay attention.
Yeah, there might almost be a post-mortem to do there about what went right and what didn't go right. I think people want to be heard, but they also don't want to be strung along or get the sense they're being strung along. If we are adamant that the regulations absolutely require X, Y, and Z, and we're not budging on that for some reason, then I think that has to be communicated early. Might frustrate people, but they'll know the reasons why. I see Adam on the call there now, and I know Adam, I think there was a little bit of tweaking done in Glenora. And I don't know how it relates to Highlands. I haven't been to Highlands. That's not in the ward I represent. So any thoughts on our public engagement process in that, in the two communities, how they may have differed, how we maybe could improve? because I know you're sort of your feet to the fire on those issues. So
Thanks, Councillor McKeon, and respectfully, I would suggest that there was extensive engagement completed on this project. The community wasn't led along. The community raised concerns that we did adapt to. We did soften some of the typical standards that are implemented within Complete Streets and Council's safe mobility strategy. And so there was compromises, but not at the expense of creating a safe mobility community. And that considers all modes of transportation. So respectfully, there was engagement that was done, and there was compromises from administration's perspective to soften and to reduce, try and protect the historical components of the community, but still meet council's objectives related to the neighborhood renewal policy, safe mobility strategy, and Complete Streets. It's always difficult when it isn't exactly how community wants it, because we're actually trying to implement the latest safe mobility components within neighborhood renewal and renewing mature neighborhoods. We continue to improve. The adjustments that were made in Glenora were very similar to the adjustments that were made in Highlands, and it's an ongoing evolution of trying to modernize from a transportation perspective and a safe mobility perspective in communities that are mature. Are we perfect? No, but our folks work really hard to make sure that we balance council's expectations around the neighborhood renewal program and communities' expectations around the neighborhood renewal program.
and Adam, I'm not surprised and appreciate everything you just said. I think we were getting a lot of email out of Highlands as non-ward representatives, and was a little bit surprised by that. So it raised questions in my mind about whether we were getting at, as we did in Glenora, got at least some of the major concerns addressed. And I'm way past time, so I should shut up.
Councillor Henderson?
Yeah, just to follow up a little bit of that before I get to the question I really want to ask. It strikes me that, because I think this has happened in every neighborhood. I know it's, we had a smaller situation similar in Garneau. Remember the argument about the sidewalk out in the West End a number of years ago. That there's places where what an individual community may desire is actually at odds with policy that we've set, correct? And that puts you in a bind. If we want to change the policies, that would have to come back to council, correct?
That's correct, and I will highlight in some of the discussions related to the neighborhood renewal policy, not all of council, but some councillors have identified that our starting point with neighborhood renewal should be to the fullest degree of safe mobility strategy and neighborhood renewal and accessibility as well.
And when it's posed to us that way, everybody gets on side. It's just when you start looking at some of the detail of that, it gets more complicated, and there's trade-offs.
Which our folks manage very well.
And there's majority interests and minority interests, and no amount of public engagement can deal with that conflict, I suspect, except to try and make sure that everybody's interests are as best served as they can be.
That's correct.
Because I flagged this in a way because, one of the discussions when we were coming up with the strategy was recognizing that when we make a commitment to public engagement as a kind of democratic responsibility, that's about getting the best information for council ultimately to make a decision. It's not about doing things by popular vote. And I think that's an important distinction we need to remember. It's why we fussed that through, because I was scared that we had left that as an open question that was creating mis-expectations about what public engagement can do. It's mostly, I think, Mr. Laughlin, and your department more than any, it's about getting the best information from the community so that we can make the best decision based on citywide policy and all sorts of other things as well, but not doing it without understanding local context, correct?
That's correct. And the neighborhood, Building Great Neighborhoods program specifically focused on neighborhood renewal has evolved significantly from what it was previously, which was
and it's not perfect, and I know, and the more interventionist we're trying to be, which I think has huge advantage, because I have neighborhoods which would have loved a level of intervention on what we've done to their neighborhood that we'll now not get back to for 30 years. So, I mean, that's the flip side of it. Anyway, I had a slightly different question, and I apologize for not, didn't catch this until the Guiding Coalition meeting last week. On the bit that we're adding about diversity and inclusion, we talk about city staff will ensure efforts are made to accommodate diverse needs in order to reduce barriers. I think, and more this is coming up out of the conversations at the coalition, is not just about reducing barriers, it's also about encouraging participation from diverse communities. And I'm wondering if there's a way to add the word encourage in there. It's not perfectly clean, but I think accommodate diverse needs in order to reduce barriers and encourage participation, or reduce barriers to and encourage participation alignment. It's not completely elegant, but I think what's becoming clear is it's not just about making it possible for diverse communities to engage. I think we're going to have to be proactive in terms of really encouraging them to be there. I think that's our intent. It just isn't showing up in this language. And I'm wondering, Ms. Owen, I guess probably you're the best person to run this by, what your thoughts are about that.
I think a further turn of the dial to go from barrier removal to welcoming and encouraging would be a very good addition.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. There was no way to. I suggested this last week, but obviously this report predates that. So I put that out to committee to see if they just want to make that little tweak, because I think what's becoming clear is if we want diverse communities at the table, it's not just about getting out of the way. It's going to be about actively going out and welcoming them to the table. And I think that probably should be in the guiding document. So that was my one question. I leave that to the committee to decide if they want to act on it or not.
And you're correct, Councillor. The spirit of that is what's intended, but
yeah,
if you
I realize that. Yeah,
more explicit.
Yeah, we could work up some wording that I think the intent of that's friendly. So perhaps we can cook something up there while we move through a few more questions and then make that amendment, or else, of course, there's an opportunity to amend it at council next week too. So appreciate that flag, Councillor Henderson, but let's see if we can tidy up at committee. So craft away while Councillor Essinger asks the next question. Go ahead.
Thank you. And I'm sure this is embedded in there, but I just wanted to clarify, because we've added the words GBA plus and we've embedded in that. Where do children fit in? Are they the plus and GBA plus? Because we've used many different ways to reach their voices. And how do you envision them captured in this document?
GBA plus, Councillor, does encompass a lot of pluses. The very nature of that way of looking at the world is to be as inclusive as possible and to calibrate the listening based on the nature of the issue that we're trying to get insight on. So they're included there for sure.
I thought so. I just wanted to clarify because I hadn't seen that before. So thank you very much. That was my only question.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, a little tricky to do virtually and on the fly here, but does anyone have some suggested wording to incorporate Councillor Henderson's suggestion? We want to take a quick recess so some folks can huddle, maybe. Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, I think the cleanest and easiest way to do it is just to add the word encourage after reduce barriers to.
Does that work?
I didn't have a chance to check that with administration, so.
I saw Ms. Owen nodding. Does that work for you?
It sure does, because it will compel us to remember to do outreach, not just remove barriers.
Can the clerk, Mr. Mayor, sorry, I'll go on.
Sure, Councillor Walters, go ahead.
Well, if we want to take a minute to draft a motion reflecting that change, just so we can see it, and then if it's friendly, that's fine. Would be my suggestion.
Okay.
Clerks can.
You can make it, and then I'll test if it's friendly once we have the wording. As
right.
One of the public engagement initiative leads on this work as well. So it's fitting.
Last term. Thanks for the shout out.
Who lives, who dies, who tells your story? to the clerks. Do you need a few more minutes?
Yes, I'm just trying to get the details, and I will share it in the group chat.
Okay, why don't we recess for another 5, and then we'll come back with finished wording on this. And then perhaps Councillor Walters, you can move it with the change. That's how the other way we could structure the motion, because I'm hearing it as friendly. So then we can do it in one shot. So if you write the word write it that way. So let's come back at 10:25 with wording to make that adjustment. So is that sufficient, Madam Clerk?
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Great. Okay, see you in 5.
Yeah, I'm here.
And Councillor McKean?
I am here.
Okay, well, then we can come back slightly early with your blessing from recess, because it looks like we have wording now. So, Councillor Walters, want to put the motion?
I will move that the revised public engagement policy C593A as outlined in attachment 1 of May 27, 2021 Communications and Engagement Report CE 00508 be approved with the amendment to add the word and encourage after reduce barriers to in the diversity and inclusion bullet.
Thank you. Did you want to speak to it?
No, that's good.
Okay. Councillor Henderson? You're good? Okay. Any other questions on this one? Anyone wishing to speak to it further? Not seeing any, then please vote on the recommendation to council with the adjustment.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. And Mr. Mayor, we're just missing your vote.
having an East grad morning. I'm a yes.
Thank you. We have all the votes.
Display the vote. Carried unanimously. Are there any notices of motion this morning?
Yes, I have one.
Go ahead.
I'll move at the next council meeting that the City of Edmonton Council recognizes that a healthy professional news media is essential to the proper functioning of democracy in our city, urges nearby councils, municipal councils across Canada to recognize that a robust news media is essential to the proper functioning of democracy in their jurisdictions, endorses legislation and regulations to support and rejuvenate news outlets across Canada, and urges the federal government to move quickly to pass legislation to ensure an ecosystem for a healthy news media to serve all Canadians. And the resolution be forwarded to the area municipalities, local MPs, MLAs, and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities.
Notice is received. Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Any other notices of motion? Seeing none, then you may have the next several hours back. Use them wisely. Or don't. It's really up to you. Have a good day, though, nonetheless. Thanks.
Thank you.